Plus-size woman says she refuses to settle for mediocre men, but society condemns men who dare to have high standards for women. Hey guys, welcome back to Alpha Talk. So for today, I'm going to go over an article titled, Plus-size woman says being fat doesn't mean she has to settle for mediocre men. And a big shout out to Danny for sending me this article. Guys, what we have here is a woman who considers herself to be plus-sized, okay? And in today's politically correct world, you can't say FAT anymore or obese. You've got to say plus size. But the reality is, in my mind, plus size means some extra meat on the bones, some junk in the trunk for a dude, some love handles, not obese. But in today's world, because, God forbid, anybody says anything to offend anybody, they've got to use plus size for these big, gigantic 300-pound hippos. Okay, plus size, my ass. And this whole thing goes into her basically saying that she is entitled to top guys, that she just shouldn't have to settle for mediocre men. And I find this very funny because, God forbid, if a guy wrote an article in today's world and said basically that he, as well as guys like him, maybe guys that don't make a whole lot of money, that they shouldn't have to settle for mediocre women, what would happen to them? And we all know. There would be some kind of social media outcry. There would be people calling to cancel the guy. Maybe the media would start talking about him if it went around and circulated enough. Feminist groups would be raising holy hell, saying there's no such thing as a mediocre woman, right? But it's perfectly okay to do that with guys, right? But the sense of the delusion out there is just unreal. And so I'm doing this, guys, just to point that out and point out the BS, because, again, if a guy did this, he would be the bad guy. Women can be picky, women can have all these standards, but God forbid if a guy has standards, then he's a jerk, right? That's a bunch of... And she's also going to talk about here, guys, about obviously loving herself no matter what and all that. And I've got no problem with somebody obviously not hating themselves. I don't want anybody going around hating themselves because of this or that. But you know what, guys? The fact that we're not completely loving ourselves gives us incentive every day to get off our butts and actually make something of ourselves, to improve ourselves. Okay? If people that didn't have a job, didn't have any kind of income, just loved themselves, they would never get off their butts and get a job. If somebody was overweight, but they had this idea they loved themselves, they're never going to do anything to lose that weight, to become healthy, because guess what? Newsflash. Being morbidly obese, like she is, as you're going to see, is very detrimental to your health. Any medical doctor worth his money, worth his degree, will tell you that, okay? But in today's world, it is offensive and not politically correct to basically say things like that. But I'm going to say it here. And also, I'm going to point out that, guess what? With that attitude, guess what? I don't think she has lines of guys waiting to get together with her. The only guys that go for women like this, the big girls, are the small percentage of guys that actually are attracted to big women. And if they are, okay, to each their own, or guys that are using them, probably financially, because she comes from money or something like that. That's it, okay? But there are girls like this, with this attitude, this warped sense of reality. Guess what? Time's going to go by, they're not going to have any man, and they're going to blame guys for not wanting to be with women like that, right? We're going to be the bad guy, just you watch. But anyhow, guys, I'm going to go through her thing here. You're going to just see the delusion here. It's crazy. And again, how, God forbid, if we said something like this, well, then we're the bad guys. So it starts off. A plus-sized woman has insisted that she won't lower her standards in love and relationships simply because of her size. She won't lower her standards, okay? Teacher Megan Fisher, 29, worked hard to feel comfortable in her own skin, and while others may judge her appearance, she's confident that she deserves more than just a mediocre guy. Good for her. That's what this says. You've got to be kidding me here. She may be a great person, okay? If someone's overweight, it doesn't mean that they are a bad person. They could be the nicest and coolest person, guy or girl, intelligent, capable, all these things. But don't kid yourself, okay? Especially if you're a woman and you're trying to attract men. Men are visual creatures, okay? That's our primary thing that's going to get our attention and attract us, your looks. A lot of women don't like this, and they say it's just shallow and superficial. Well, guess what? Until you have one of those between your legs, you're not going to understand how it works, okay? It's kind of the same thing, how a lot of guys get upset because a lot of women want guys who actually have an income and make good money and all, and they're attracted to guys that have money and wealth and all that, okay? It is what it is, okay? They're wired that way and we're wired this way. But in this regard, don't get so delusional and think that you have a shot and make us out to be the bad guy if we're not interested in you. She says, Megan tried everything to lose weight. Throughout her teens and early 20s, Megan says she went to great lengths to try and slim down, doing everything from Atkins, keto, and paleo diets to even trying to starve herself to hopefully drop weight. Nothing was working, and she felt miserable and knew she needed to make a change. Well, you know what? I know what it's like to be overweight. For a brief period of time when I was a kid, from about 10 and a half years old to about 12 years old, 12 and a half, give or take, I gained a bunch of weight. I was a chubby little, We moved from California to Pennsylvania to a small town. It was like night and day difference. Okay, my dad retired. He was a doctor. He was way older than my mom, and he was done with Los Angeles and all the traffic and all. He wanted the quiet life out in the country from where my mom grew up. Okay? And when I moved there, all the kids hated me because I was from California, and they were from a small town where pretty much it consisted of farms and factories, very blue-collar diners everywhere. They didn't like me, so I became a loner, and I basically watched TV and cartoons and ate Doritos, and I got chubby as hell. And I know what it was like, and I hated it. And the big moment for me was in 6th grade. The gym class, we had to do pull-ups and sit-ups, and I could only do 2 pull-ups, barely, and I could barely do any sit-ups. And I felt like a loser, and the girls were watching. At that point, and then that's it. I did what I had to do. I rode my bike everywhere. I started lifting weights at 12 years old, and unfortunately, I started eating better. That was a definite part of it. And then I had puberty hit, I had a growth spurt, and I went from being 5 feet tall to 5'10" in 1 year, and kind of like an accordion, stretched me out, okay? Now, obviously, I didn't have any medical issues that held me back, but the thing is, I made effort to lose the weight. So I understand what it feels like, but you've got to try everything. And she says she tried stuff here. Well, then you keep trying. You don't give up. There are ways. There are people that have medical issues like thyroid and things like that, but obviously actions can be taken. But by and large, most people nowadays are just too lazy to change their diet to get some exercise, okay? If you want to make a change, you've got to do it. But now we have this whole thing, like basically love yourself, big, gigantic, and huge, and that's okay. Well, no, I mean, you're going to have serious health risks later on in life, if not actually sooner, depending diabetes, heart disease, just to begin. So if you're going to go out promoting this, you're only going to get people to think that it's okay too, and they're going to suffer those problems. And that's why I'm calling it out. Anyhow, I had to say that little rant, get that little history about me to show you. I get it. I was once chubby too. I wasn't large and in charge like her, but I was overweight and it sucked. But I took action. She goes on, just before she was due to get a gastric bypass, she discovered body positivity. So she was going to take the medical procedure, and that changed her. But she found body positivity, inspired by the likes of Tess Holliday and other women in the body positivity movement, and realized there was nothing wrong with her the way she was. Tess Holliday? She's using Tess Holliday as her inspiration here. I don't know if you guys know who Tess Holliday is. You can look her up and you'll figure out real quick. Tess Holliday, literally, she could go to the zoo and walk past the elephant enclosure, and the elephants would be like, "God damn, that makes us look skinny." That's how big Tess Holliday is, okay? That's not a role model to look up to. Good Lord. She says, being 300 pounds had nothing to do with her worth, and she was tired of feeling like it did. I never had plus-size role models in my life growing up. I never had someone who was plus size who was so successful saying, your current body is not only fine, you can celebrate it. You've got to be kidding me. That's not a role model. A role model is someone that was once in a bad situation, let's just say very overweight, and they took action, whatever had to be done, trying and trying and trying many methods, until finally found a way to make it happen and then become successful. That is a positive role model, not someone that basically stayed overweight and basically said, well, I love myself, and that's that. And made everybody say, oh, well, I don't have to do anything. It's kind of like somebody who's broke and is bankrupt, basically saying, hey, being bankrupt's okay. Having no money is okay. You can just mooch off others. That's not a role model. A role model is someone that had hard times, went bankrupt, but then took action, turned their lives around, became a success, made a lot of money. That's a role model, not like this. But today's world is completely warped, so this is what we have. It goes on. Knowing how much Tess has helped me with my journey made me realize that if I post pictures of myself, normalizing things society says fat girls can't do, like wearing a bikini and dating attractive men, my goal is to be a role model I needed when I was younger. That's not a role model, honey, okay? Putting your pictures of yourself, 300 pounds of you, in a bikini on Instagram. Okay, again, she may be a really nice person, but let's not get out of reality here. I mean, we're in La La Land, guys. She goes, continues. Moving to New York changed Megan's life. Megan decided to leave her boyfriend and job behind and move to New York for a fresh start. She actually left a guy behind that wanted to be with her, in spite of her being 300 pounds. See? It changed everything. As a plus-size woman, life in New York has been a complete turnaround for how things were in the past. My life, before I moved to NYC, could be described as dull. I was unmotivated to make any changes in my life, mostly due to fear, and therefore they're unhappy, she said. I was in a miserable job as a main cashier, making low wages. I was living with a boyfriend in a relationship that was not right for me. I was unhappy with my body because I did not know what happiness even was. Well, I'm glad she picked up and moved to another place to get a better job and things like that. That's great. I encourage everybody to do that. So, okay, good there. She wasn't happy with her job as a cashier. Okay, cool. But there's other things involved, like the big U. And also, in ditching the guy, he says, the more she began to love herself, the happier she became. Megan continued, I would never have worn a bikini until I moved to New York and found my new mindset of self-love. In high school, I was so self-conscious of my body and truly believed I would never be able to have a boyfriend until I lost weight. I was too afraid to talk to guys in high school because of how I felt about my body at that time. Well, again, I know what it was like. I wasn't like her, but again, I know what it's like to be chubby, and the girls didn't like me and all that, and it sucked, okay? And so I don't want anybody hating themselves. Let me make this abundantly clear. But let's not, like I said, have this warped sense of reality and go promoting something that is going to give people major, major health problems down the road, okay? Not that hard. But this is today's world. No doctor, like I said, no medical doctor would ever go for this, okay? She continues, some men seem to think that she'll settle for anything, but they're wrong. Megan is regularly messaged by guys on social media where she actively posts selfies and other pictures of herself living her best life. Unfortunately, not all of them are up to par, but seem to think that she owes them something because of her size. She says, I think some men believe they can message fat girls, and they were obliged to talk to them just because they're giving us attention. But they are so wrong, she insisted. And listen to this, she says, fat women do not have to settle for any man. We have plenty of amazing options, too. True. Well, again, there are guys that like the BBWs, the big girls out there, and okay, to each their own. But still, it's small, okay? But this high mighty attitude, only in today's world. She finishes up, as she so eloquently puts it, if it makes you happy, then go for it. You truly cannot make everyone happy, even if you're wearing a large paper bag, hiding all your curves. So why not wear something that makes you feel amazing? Good advice all around. You can follow Meg on Instagram here. Well, if you guys want to check her out, go right ahead, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But the point is this, guys, is that, like I said in the beginning, if a guy wrote an article basically saying we're not going to settle for mediocre women, or basically saying how guys have standards, we're the bad guy. We all know this. I'm preaching to the choir here. But a woman says it about guys, and that's perfectly okay. It's celebrating all... Okay, we're allowed to have selection too. We're not the bad guys for that. But this whole, again, the whole thing, this body positivity thing, I can't make it any more clear. I don't want anybody going around hating themselves or harassing anybody. I don't believe in any way, shape, or form because someone's overweight, they should be harassed or made fun of. Now, I know I'm making fun of her, and I'm making fun of that Tess Holliday, only because they're trying to spread this unhealthy message in terms of, not unhealthy about, like, the views on themselves, and not just the views on themselves, but just, like, I wouldn't be hating themselves. But this unhealthy idea, basically, it's okay to be a 300-pound hippopotamus. No, because you're going to have major health problems later on down the road, and not to mention the fact that that will probably impact insurance prices for the rest of us because of people like that, and also, potentially, taxpayers, if she lives long enough to tap into other things that taxpayers could pay for her bad health decisions, okay? That I'm definitely against, but it's crazy, okay? But at the end of the day, this is today's world. But I'm going to talk about this stuff, and I may not be popular about it, but I don't think I'm the only one here that thinks these things. So anyhow, guys, that'd be a funny little thing to share. So be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this, and be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.